What is going on, guys? Johnny on the track back with another video. Still have to get used to this camera. It sketches me out a little bit every time I use it. But nonetheless, we are here. My name is Johnny on the track, and today I'm going to be giving you my early, but not too early at this point, playoff predictions for the 2025 NASCAR Cup season. So 16 drivers. I'm going to give you the list of my 16, and I'm not going to really make this too long, quite frankly. I'll give you the guy, I'll give you the reason I think they're going to make the playoffs, and then I'll key point some of the guys that big names that I don't have in here. I will preface, I didn't do terribly last year in my playoff predictions, but I had Ross making it, he didn't make it. I didn't have Harrison Burton making the playoffs. I believe I did have Briscoe, so I nailed that one. Trying to didn't have Suarez. I know I had Kyle Busch, so definitely, some things I got wrong, taking some swings where I felt, I felt confident. I would say this year I took a different approach. So I'm going to go 1 to 16, one being the guy that I feel the most confident in making the playoffs down to 16. And so that's kind of how I did this. And it's basically it's a conservative approach in my opinion, but you never know at this point because it's winning you're in. So one win, you're in the playoffs. And we saw, Chris Buescher get one late. Ricky Stenhouse got a win. You've got, Cole Custer, SVG, Ryan Preece in a new ride. So, there's a lot of guys that can win races, have won races, and can make the playoffs just because they get a crazy win at some point. Look at Austin Dillon. I know he didn't get in, but he has the best car at Richmond, and if he didn't wreck Logano and Hamlin, he's in, quite frankly. So, all right, let's not delay any longer. So, number one on my list, guy I feel the most confident in, and I know this guy's making the playoffs. That is Kyle Larson. Larson is the most talented race car driver in the world right now. No offense to Max Verstappen, or maybe even an SVG at this point, but Kyle Larson can do it everywhere, in every which way, on every sort of track. Kyle Larson wins multiple races. He's got Cliff Daniels. He's at Hendrick Motorsports in the number 5 Chevrolet. Larson to the playoffs. Number two, Ryan Blaney. At this point, to me, Ryan Blaney is the most consistent driver we have in the NASCAR Cup Series. He just is, and he finished second in the championship standings last year, only to lose so close to his teammate Joey Logano, who I will talk about a little bit later. But Ryan Blaney, consistency, gets wins. I love what I've seen. He's, to me, a superstar in the sport, and one guy that I think NASCAR needs to market more around. But Ryan Blaney, number two to make the playoffs. Number three, Christopher Bell, my favorite driver right now in the Cup Series. I talked about how talented Larson is. Bell is just a half step below Larson in terms of he could do it on mile and a halves. He qualifies well, road course, dirt. He is a super talented race car driver. He has now won multiple races in multiple seasons now. So Christopher Bell, young gun in the number 20 at Joe Gibbs Racing, will make the playoffs. Number four, William Byron. Another just really consistent driver driving that number 24 for Hendrick Motorsports. Byron, has shown me he can win multiple races. He's very consistent. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes. Every now and then has some slumps in the summer months, but still, even with that, he finds a way to heat back up in the playoffs. Always starts, the season off hot. So, him, Rudy Fugle, great pairing, and I think William Byron wins an early one, and he'll lock himself into the playoffs pretty quickly. Number five, I'm going to go to Tyler Reddick. Again, I talk about Bell and Larson. There's Reddick. He's right there. He's on that Bell sort of category where he's just so fast. I think you can make an argument that he is probably the purest, fastest driver we have. Now, Larson might be more technical, might take a little bit more risks, but in terms of a speed and driving standpoint, Tyler Reddick is one of the best. At Toyota, in a good ride, 2311, an ascending program, an ascending team. Tyler Reddick has shown you he can do it on the road course. He can do it on the mile and a halves. If you need one on a short track, he'll have a good, solid result. So Tyler Reddick will be back in the playoffs. We're through five. Let's get to six. That's going to be Denny Hamlin. Now, I know Denny will have a new crew chief, but he's still Denny Hamlin. He is a three-time Daytona 500 winner. He just wins races. And at Joe Gibbs in the number 11 Toyota, he he's just going to do his thing, quite frankly. Now, do I think he'll win a championship before he retires? I don't. But I know he'll win plenty more races. I know that for a fact because he's still one of the fastest, most technical drivers. I talked about Tyler Reddick or Larson being technical. Hamlin knows how to preserve his stuff. He knows how to, turn it on in the latter stages of a race or latter laps rather in a race. And Denny Hamlin is still one of the biggest and best stars we have in the sport. Denny Hamlin will be back into the playoffs. Number seven on my list is Chase Elliott. Now, from a win standpoint, Elliott only had the one win at Texas last season, but I liked what I saw consistency wise from Chase. I think at this point you have to win a race to get into the playoffs. You can't just get in on points at this point in where we are in NASCAR. The winning you're in. So I think Chase Elliott is going to have to step it up. I think he will. I think Chase is going to have at least two wins this season. And whether that be on a road course, he hasn't really shined in quite a while on a road course. But I think he's due for a road course win. And he's just fast. He's just fast at a lot of these tracks. So I think couple consistency with a win here and there for Chase. He will be back in the playoffs. Pretty confident about that one. Now I go to the defending champ, and I have him eighth on my list because, quite frankly, Logano, um, you know, speed wise, prior to the playoffs, in the past few years, he really just hasn't had it. So there's a scenario where I see rather Logano, being right around 13th in points and fighting for a win. I mean, look at Kyle Busch, right? He was fighting and fighting and then finally like couldn't get in to the playoffs. Look at a guy like Ty Gibbs, who has been super, super consistent and fast and has top fives, but can't break through with that win. So as confident as I am about Joey Logano on a super speedway and on some of these shorter flat tracks, there's still questions to be asked about Penske on some of these mile and a halfs. We've seen it from Blaney where he has the speed and can get the wins, but it's been a while truly where Logano has had a really, really fast car. Now, he did win a mile and a half in the playoffs to clinch his way into the championship four, but that was all strategy based. He really has not had a top three car at a mile and a half in quite some time. And so, again, as confident as I feel in Joey Logano to make it to the playoffs, it isn't even, or sorry, an odd year coming up, 2025. We know even year Logano is just that guy. But in terms of speed, like I said, it's been a while since we've really seen Logano have a top tier car on a mile and a half. And you couple that with what it takes to get into the playoffs. I feel like Logano could miss, quite frankly. I don't think he will, but I could see a situation where he does miss. But I have Logano in the playoffs. Number nine, I'm going to go to a new driver in a new situation. His name is Chase Briscoe. Number 19, Toyota. He'll drive this year for Joe Gibbs Racing. I just think when you put a really talented race car driver in a good ride like Chase Briscoe, he's going to get the job done. And I think he's going to get one early. I think he's going to win one of the first 4 to 6 races, quite frankly. I think it's going to be sort of that Kyle Busch start that we saw at RCR, where you just get a really talented guy in a new situation. And for Chase, he's now in the best equipment he'll have ever been in. And so I think he can get the job done. I see Chase Briscoe winning multiple races this season and being a severe championship threat when it's all said and done. So Chase Briscoe to the playoffs. I do have questions about him and James Small rather, that relationship. But I do overall think that Chase Briscoe is too talented, and you put him in a ride like that, he's going to make the playoffs. And he made it last year in a Stewart Haas Racing Ford. So, yeah, he's got it made for him. Brad Keselowski, number 10 on my list. I think Brad will be back, former champion, had the win at Darlington last year. You know, honestly, that was probably a race where he didn't truly deserve the win. That should have been Busher in my opinion. But if you remember Busher and Reddick wreck, Keselowski comes out of nowhere, wins at Darlington. But Brad actually had some better opportunities where I thought, okay, that's the day where Brad's going to win it and have a dominating car, and it just didn't happen. It actually turned out to be a little bit of luck at Darlington. Now that's not to say Brad didn't have a great car at Darlington. He did, but. I think there's been some opportunities over the last couple of years where if things just go a little bit differently, Brad might have multiple wins. And so I like Keselowski, again, former champion, that program continuing to build. Now, do I have concerns adding a third car, what that might do for resources? A little bit, but at the same time, Brad Keselowski is the owner or part owner of this team, and I think he's going to figure it out on how to run three cars and do it efficiently and effectively. So Brad Keselowski, number 10 on my list, he'll be back in the playoffs. Number 11, I'm going to go to the final of four Hendrick Motorsports Chevys. I'm going to go to Alex Bowman. Um, Bowman was at points, several points last year, the most consistent driver in the field. Just top 10 after top 10. Now, you got to make that jump. You have to get the wins, but Bowman has showed us that he can do that. Obviously, won Chicago last year in 2021, I believe it was. Bowman won 3+ races. So Bowman can win, and Bowman has shown that he can be consistent. So I just think, again, it's a talented young race car driver at Hendrick Motorsports. He's gonna find one. He'll find one, and if he has to pull a rabbit out of a hat, he'll do so. I just can't see Alex Bowman not making the playoffs when healthy. The only season, or there are two times Alex Bowman didn't make the playoffs. It was his rookie season, which very many, often aren't able to do, and then the season where he was hurt, he didn't make the playoffs, which was 2 seasons ago. So other than that, Alex Bowman wins a race, gets into the playoffs, or sometimes wins multiple, and locks his spot in the playoffs, but hasn't really made a deep playoff run. We haven't seen Alex Bowman ever make it to the round of eight. That's the next step for him, but nonetheless, he'll be back into the playoffs. All right, number 12 is a little bit of a switch up here, but I'm going to go with Shane Van Gisbergen, SVG. I just feel that there are too many road course opportunities prior to the playoff cut line. Shane's going to get one, quite frankly. He's going to have now every week to prepare in the next gen car. We already know, or we've already seen him win at Chicago in the 2023 season. Had, some opportunities. Obviously, Watkins Glen had a great car at Chicago last year. Could have won both those races if things go a little bit differently. Again, Shane being in the car every week and the opportunities he'll have. You look at the Mexico Street Course race, I think he can win that one. He'll lock himself into the playoffs. Shane Van Gisbergen is number 11 on my list. Number 12 on my list, I'm going to go back to a guy that I mentioned earlier that did not make the playoffs last year, Ross Chastain. Now, Ross did end up getting a mile-and-a-half win later in the season, battled it out with Kyle Busch. In the playoffs, obviously wasn't, in the playoff field, but did win a playoff race. I think Ross is going to just get one, and he's going to get one a lot earlier than he did last season. Still, the consistency is there with Ross. It's just, he's kind of struggled having like a seventh to eighth place car and just really can't get over the hump. But I think things fall his way, and I think Ross gets back into the playoffs. Number 13 now, or is that 14? Hold on. Let me recount this real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Number 14. Okay, apologies. Number 14 on my list is Ty Gibbs. I think he breaks through this year. again, I mentioned him a little bit earlier. Consistent top fives, top tens, but just hasn't broken through. Now, he did make the playoffs last year without a win, but I think he's going to have to get a win. Like I said, you're going to have to get a win to make this playoff field. There's too many good, talented drivers. There's too many organizations that are now taking a step up, like a Trackhouse with VG, like a RFK with Ryan Preece coming in there. Haas factory team, almost like a de facto fourth RFK team with Cole Custer. So there's a lot of good teams adding more talent to their pool. And in that sense, I think you're going to have to win. I think Ty Gibbs is just going to break through at this point. He's been too good recently to not get one. And when you're driving a Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota, at some point you break through. I think that happens for Ty Gibbs. I have him in the playoffs. Number 15, I'm going to go to a guy that was so close, oh, so close, one spot away from making the NASCAR playoffs in 2024. That is the two-time NASCAR Cup Series champion. That is Kyle Busch. I don't see back-to-back years Kyle Busch missing the playoffs. I just don't. I just don't see it. I think he gets in. I think he gets a win early. I think that weight is lifted. I could see him winning the Daytona 500. There was a lot of bad beats last year when I bet on Kyle Busch. It stunk, quite frankly. But I believe in Kyle. I think Kyle we will be back. We saw RCR take some big strides post the Olympic break. With the win Austin Dillon at Richmond had the best car. Again, take away the crazy finish. He had the best car. And if that race just goes green, he wins that race. So we saw them take strides. And then, of course, Kyle Busch finishing second at Darlington, only to Chase Briscoe, just missing the playoffs. I think Kyle gets one. And then finally, number 16. There's a lot of names, right? Chris Buescher, Bubba Wallace, Daniel Suarez, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Austin Cindric, Josh Berry in a new ride, Justin Haley with Rodney Childers, Carson Hocevar. Can he make that jump? Austin Dillon, I mentioned his name. Can he win another race? A lot of names here. Eric Jones. What does Eric Jones do with Legacy Motor Club? Did they make a jump? I mentioned a lot of names. One name I didn't mention is a guy by the name of Todd Gilliland. Todd Gilliland is the future for Front Row Motorsports. Todd Gilliland is going to break through. I think it's going to be at a super speedway, whether that be at Talladega, whether that be at Atlanta. I think he gets a win. I think he locks himself in. I feel like this is probably going to be a popular pick just because the true alliance they now have with Penske and the strides we saw them make last year, especially qualifying at super speedways. I have Todd Gilliland getting front row a win in their first playoff driver since Michael McDowell, whenever that was, 2 years ago now when he won at Indy. And yeah, that is my playoff field. I will go through one more time. Larson, Blaney, Bell, Byron, Reddick, Hamlin, Elliott, Logano, Briscoe, Keselowski, Bowman, SVG, Chastain, Ty Gibbs, Kyle Busch, and to round out 16 spot, Todd Gilliland. I actually like that for seeding as well. I think that's pretty solid as we look at like seeds overall. I can see that. I'll talk briefly. Buescher, I think Buescher gets a win, but I think it's too late. I think it's too little, too late for Chris Buescher. I think that win comes post the playoff cut line. Bubba, you got to show me, man. You got to show me you can win a race. You got to show me you can win multiple races. I know you're good. I know you're talented. I know you're fast. But you make mistakes. Your crew chief makes mistakes. Your team makes mistakes. And quite frankly, at some point, I got to see it to believe it. Cindric, I just don't think he'll be back. I think that was a lucky fluke win he had. I like Cindric. I think he can get one at a super speedway. But I like the guys I have over him. Suarez, I don't see Suarez winning. I think this is probably it for Suarez at Trackhouse. Stenhouse, definitely can get in. I mean, he can win any of those super speedways. We saw what he did at playoff Talladega last year. Priest, I'm very high on. You guys know how I feel about Ryan Priest. I think he can sneak in. I just have to play the safe game. Josh Berry, same thing. Very high on Berry. I think he can sneak in. But it's gonna take it's going to take a heck of a race, and you're going to have to execute on every front, and it's going to have to be at a short track. So, can it happen? Yeah. I mean, Harrison Burton made the playoffs with the Wood brothers last year, but I again gotta be safe, gotta play it safe. So I'm going with this field. Jones, just don't believe in legacy. Hocevar, I think he's talented, but I still have questions about who he is on the racetrack. Austin Dillon, shoot, I mean, Dillon wins a race pretty much like every other year. So, he got one last year. I think he doesn't get one this year. And then finally, Justin Haley, who I think a lot of people will be high on. Um, I like the pairing, but we saw, once Haley got in that Spire car at the end of last year, it didn't look good. It didn't look good at all. So I think Haley's going to get consistently better as the season goes on, especially building that chemistry with Rodney Childers. But I think same thing is be too little, too late. If he really starts to have success, it's going to be post. I would say like summer months and beyond. So that is, you know, my playoff field. Want to know what you guys think? Put your, who you think I have that probably won't make it, or some names I left off. Put that in the comments section below. Like this video goes a long way for the channel, and of course, subscribe for more motorsports content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.